Welcome, everybody, and happy Friday. Today, we are bringing to you a webinar on the Restaurant Revitalization Fund that is now available. We wanted to get this information out to our community as quickly as possible because this program has a lot of different rules and different requirements. And so we want you to have the information up front. It is also a first come, first serve program. So we want you to get in. Today, we have some guests with us. We have Heather Luzzi from the SBA. We have Mr. Clarence Campbell from Lindustry, and we also have Chris Horton as well from Lindustry. So we're just going to go around the room and have everyone introduce themselves. Heather, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and the SBA?
Certainly. So thank you so much, Dr. Dene. It's a pleasure to be here, and I'm excited to share the stage this morning with the folks at Lindustry. My name is Heather Luzzi, and I'm the District Director for the Sacramento District Office for the U.S. Small Business Administration. The administration has been in existence since 1953, and we were incepted or created as part of the Small Business Act. All of the products and services that are offered by SBA are at no cost as they are prepaid by tax dollars. So please reach out if you need assistance. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Clarence, would you mind introducing yourself and Lindustry?
Great. Well, thank you, Danae, and it's our pleasure to be here supporting and partnering with BSBA. Again, I'm Clarence Campbell, Executive Vice President of Sales for Lindustry. And Lindustry is a minority-owned, technology-enabled community development financial institution. And our focus really is around supporting small business owners and their underserved communities. And that's why today is so exciting to talk about this great program that SBA is presenting to support restaurants. For Lindustry, we support organizations two ways primarily. One is through education and providing that critical technical assistance that's needed to help you scale your business. And the other is helping to provide access to capital. And we know a big part of the focus for our small business community is through job creation. And Lindustry this year will disperse over $3 billion in capital and support over 2 million jobs. So again, we are really excited to be here today and partnering with two great organizations, BSBA and the SBA. Thank you, Danae.
Thank you so much, Clarence. And we will have Chris Horton introduce himself and provide and start with the presentation.
Sure. Thank you, Dr. Dene, and thank you, Heather, for always being a valuable partner. The SBA has been a magnificent partner and a resource for folks during and before the pandemic. Chris Horton, I'm part of Clarence's team with Lindustry in supporting small businesses, both on the technical assistance side and then also with access to capital. I'll go ahead and I'll jump right into the webinar and the presentation. So first and foremost, I just want to take a quick moment to familiarize those that are not familiar with us here at Lindustry. As Clarence said, Lindustry is a minority-led and technology-enabled community development financial institution that is dedicated to providing economic opportunities and progressive growth for small business owners and their underserved communities with financing and financial education. Some of the accreditations that we have and certifications is the Community Development Financial Institution, the CDE, which is the Community Development Entity. We are a federal home loan bank, and we are obviously partners with the SBA, so we are approved SBA lenders. Our business model, Lindustry is non-traditional. Our business model is technology-enabled and customer-focused. I must emphasize it's really amazing the customer-focused aspect of what we do on a day-in and day-out basis. We have an ongoing investment in our proprietary technology to enhance the borrower experience. Lindustry is uniquely positioned to use its technology to quickly and efficiently deploy capital in a scalable way. So now we're going to dive into the actual particulars and parameters of the Restaurant Revitalization Fund. This program provides emergency assistance for eligible restaurants, bars, and other qualifying businesses impacted by COVID-19. The program overview, so an introduction to our program, is the U.S. Small Business Administration is awarding funding through the Restaurant Revitalization Program to restaurants, bars, and other similar places of business that serve food or drink. The purpose of this funding is to provide support to eligible entities that suffered revenue losses related to the COVID-19 pandemic. On March 11th, 2021, the American Rescue Plan Act became public law. It was established, Section 5003 established the Restaurant Revitalization Fund and appropriated $28.6 billion for SBA to award funds. These appropriations remain available until expended. Basically what that means, folks, don't procrastinate. Please, if you feel that this is of value to you and appropriate for you, do not hesitate in applying. To ensure that the smallest businesses and those in underserved communities receive funding awards, SBA has set aside funds that are available only for certain applicants. So I'm going to click over and share that with you. So the one thing that I wanted to point out was that this set aside, and there are some priorities. SBA will accept applications from all eligible applicants, but will only process and fund priority group applicants. So let me go down and show you those. So the priority groups, a small business concern that is at least 51% owned by one or more individuals who are women, veterans, socially and economically disadvantaged. We have the definitions here, and something I want to point out, if you don't feel that you need to memorize this, you can go to the SBA.gov website, and I will ask Heather, because there was two that we can take folks to that had the restaurant before SBA.gov and one that had SBA.gov and then restaurant afterwards. Can you tell us the difference between those two, Heather? Let's see here. I will continue going on with these definitions. So are we still all connected, Dr. Danae?
Yes,
Yeah.
I'm so sorry.
No worries. There we go. Let me go back to it, Heather. Okay.
I could not get out of the mute button. You gotta love technology. In any case, so the way to apply for the Restaurant Revitalization Fund is actually through the restaurants.sba.gov. The way to gain information about the program and what Chris is referring to is www.sba.gov/restaurants. So it's a little bit confusing, but I'll put that in the chat so Danae can put it up on the screen and we'll get you guys all squared away.
Awesome. Thanks for that, Heather. And so I just want to go over these definitions. So applicants must self-certify on the application that they meet eligibility requirements. So if you're trying to identify yourself, you have to make that determination. Socially disadvantaged individuals are those who have been subject to racial or ethnic prejudice or cultural bias because of their identity as a member of a group without regard to their individual qualities. Those that identify as economically disadvantaged individuals are those socially disadvantaged individuals whose ability to compete in the free enterprise system has been impaired due to diminished capital and credit opportunities as compared to others in the same business area who are not socially disadvantaged. So I just wanted to point that out because it's really critical that you understand this. During this period, SBA will fund applications where the applicant has self-certified that it meets the eligibility requirement for a small business owned by women, veterans, or socially and economically disadvantaged individuals. So let's be really clear. It means that they are just processing and funding during this window for these priorities. Everyone is encouraged to apply now. And then if you do not fit within this category of one of these priorities, SBA will accept applications from all eligible applicants and process applications in the order in which they are approved by SBA, days 22nd through fund exhaustion. So just wanted to point that out for folks. So that's why we have that. So this program will provide restaurants who meet eligibility requirements with funding equal to their pandemic-related revenue loss up to $5 million per physical location and not to exceed $10 million total for the applicant and any affiliated businesses. The minimum award is $1,000. Funds must be used for eligible uses no later than March 11th of 2023. And again, here's where you would be able to go and get additional information. Now we'll talk about the eligible entities. Generally, eligible entities include certain businesses who have experienced pandemic-related revenue loss and that are not permanently closed, and include businesses where the public or patrons assemble for the primary purpose of being served food or drink, and that includes restaurants, food stands, food trucks, food carts, caterers, bars, saloons, lounges, taverns, snack and non-alcoholic beverage bars, bakeries. On-site sale to the public must comprise of at least 33% of gross receipts. That is something you definitely want to make a note about, at least 33% of gross receipts. Brew pubs, tasting rooms, tap rooms, again, on-site sales to the public must comprise of at least 33% of gross receipts. Breweries and or microbreweries, again, on-site sales to the public must comprise of at least 33% of gross receipts. Wineries and distilleries meet the same criteria. On-site sales to the public comprise of at least 33% of gross receipts. And I'll pause here to just add a little clarity as well, because I had this question come up with a client. If you are at a winery and you're purchasing wine for your wine club membership, and you're going to have, and those sales are that wine collection or selection is going to be shipped to you, that would not count in the 33% of gross receipts. It is the purchase and consumption on premises. Just want to point that out for folks. Also, another eligible business entity are inns, and again, at an inn, on-site sales of food and beverage to the public comprise at least of 33% of gross receipts. And then licensed facilities are premises of a beverage alcohol producer where the public may taste, sample, or purchase products. To satisfy the statutory requirement for a place of business in which the public or patrons assemble for the primary purpose of being served food or drink, an eligible entity must have at least 33% in 2019 on-site sales to the public. The original business model of eligible entities that opened in 2020 or that have not yet opened should have contemplated at least 33% of gross receipts in on-site sales to the public. Those entities without additional documentation, requirements, such as restaurants and bars, are presumed to have on-site sales to the public comprising of at least 33% of gross receipts in 2019. All applicants must attest in the application to the following. The applicant is eligible to receive funding under the rules in effect at the time this application is submitted. Eligible entities include any of the above entities located in an airport terminal or that operate independently. For example, has its own tax identification number inside another business. An example of that is a restaurant that operates independently inside a hotel or conference center, or that are tribally owned concern. Now we'll review how to calculate funding amounts. There are a number of options. We must stress it's really important that you take some time to really identify what is the proper calculation for you and your business entity. I can tell you from a processing standpoint at Lendistry, this has really been a real sticking point to make sure that people have the right information, because this is a first come, first served program, and we want to ensure that everyone has an equitable and equal opportunity to get funding. So we really encourage you to take the time to make sure that you're doing the correct calculation. So the first calculation for applicants in operation prior to are on January 1st of 2019. First thing you do is you take your 2019 gross receipts, you subtract from your 2020 gross receipts, and you subtract any PPP loan amounts that you received. That PPP loan amount does include round one, round two, first draw, second draw, however you recognize. But if you've received any PPP funding, you're going to deduct that as well. Once you've done this, that will then tell you what the eligible funding amount is using calculation one for those applicants that were in operation prior to or on January 1, 2019. Calculation two are for applicants that began operations partially through 2019. So first you take your average 2019 monthly gross receipts. You multiply that by 12. So if you're in operation for 6 months, you divide that out, you get a monthly average, you multiply that times 12, that's how you're going to get the annual average. You subtract that from your 2020 gross receipts, you subtract any PPP funding you received, again, first draw, second draw, round one, round two, that will then determine and help you to arrive at the eligible loan amount using calculation number two. We'll move on to calculation number three. One of the things that was pointed out to me, and I want to pass it on to you, is that you want to be aware that if you're using calculation three, there may be additional documentation required. If there's additional documentation required, what that means is it may take a longer time to get through the process. So just be aware of that when you're making that determination. But how you calculate using calculation three, this is for applicants that began operations on or between January 1 of 2020 and March 10th of 2021. Also can be used by applicants that have incurred eligible expenses. So we start that over again. To use calculation three, this is for applicants that began operations on or between January 1st of 2020 and March 10th of 2021. Also, applicants not yet open but have incurred eligible expenses can use this calculation. So what you do here is the amount spent on eligible expenses between February 15th of 2020 and March 11th of 2021 minus 2020 gross receipts minus 2021 gross receipts during the period leading up to March 11th of 2021 minus that PPP funding you received. Again, first draw, second draw, round one, round two, any PPP funds that you've received, that will then arrive at your eligible funding amount. There's an important note that we want to stress as well. For those entities who began operations partially through 2019, you may, at your own discretion, use either calculation 2 or 3. And again, remember, using 3, more documentation, a little bit more time to get through the process. The maximum and minimum amounts. SBA may provide funding up to $5 million per location, not to exceed for the applicant and any affiliated businesses. Again, the minimum award is $1,000. I'll pause there. Dr. Danae, do you have any questions in the chat or anything that we can address up to this point, or can we continue going on?
There's no questions at this time.
Perfect. So here we go. How to calculate funding amount. There's a fourth option that's available for you as well. For applicants that operate multiple locations using different calculations, and applicants that operate in multiple locations can calculate funding amounts for their using separate calculation methods and then aggregate the amounts together. The aggregated funding amount is limited to $5 million per location and $10 million for applicant and its affiliates. So let's take a look at a couple examples. Example 1, an applicant owns a restaurant that has been open since 2015 and another restaurant that has been open since 2020. The applicant may use calculation 1 for the first restaurant and calculation 3 for the second restaurant. List the aggregated funding amount in table 4 of the application and indicate how many locations are used in the calculation. So I'm just going to take a bounce back just to kind of show you this here. So if we were to take the business that was in operation since 2015, you're going to be using calculation 1, 2019 gross receipts minus 2020 gross receipts minus PPP loan amounts. That's the eligible funding amount using that location that was open since 2015. If we're going to use calculation 3 for the second restaurant, then what you're looking at is amount spent on eligible expenses between February 15, 2020 and March 11th of 2021 minus 2020 gross receipts minus 2021 gross receipts through March 11th of 2021 minus that PPP funding. This is how you will arrive at the eligible funding amount there. We will then take calculation 3, calculation 1, aggregate those together, and you put them in table 4. The second example, we have a food truck operator has 5 food trucks. 3 food trucks have been in operation since 2015. 1 began operating in 2020, and 1 has been purchased but is still in the process of being made ready for use. A food truck operator has only 1 location, the business headquarters, so the food truck operator would use calculation 1 for the calculation because this business first began making sales in 2015. So those are a couple examples for us there. Here we have some additional information that's available to you. If you wanted this particular information, we have it available on our website that you can go to. But full SBA Restaurant Revitalization Funding Program Guide. You can also find this on the SBA website, and I'm sure BSBA will have this available for you as well. Supplemental documents that will be needed, how to apply, when to apply, funding amount, allowable use of funds, and then information about RRF is also available in other languages. You'll also find some frequently asked questions, which is always a good place to go. If you have a question, you may want to start there to see if the answer has already been addressed for you. Now we're going to go through the application, the actual application process step by step. So step 1, complete an application with Lendistry. Step 2, after you submit a completed application, you'll receive an email from Lendistry containing your username to the SBA portal, where you will upload required documents based on your award calculation. Use your assigned username to log in and reset your password. I encourage folks to check your clutter, your junk, and your spam email to make sure that you don't miss any communication from either Lendistry or SBA. Step 3, once logged in, you can review your application, which will be auto-populated from step 1. You will not need to re-enter your information, which is really cool for a lot of folks because you don't have to duplicate efforts. Continue through the SBA application process to check that the information you provided in the eligibility, business details, and award calculation sections are correct. It is really key. I tell folks, have a pen and piece of paper, write down the email address, write down the password that you create, and just really have a repository of information that you've provided and where to and how you located things just to make it easy for you. Step 4 in this process, in the deposit account section, link your bank or manually enter your information to set up an ACH for a direct deposit of funds. Your bank information will be reviewed to confirm the account is attached to the applicant. Hey, Clarence, you were saying something earlier today, and I liked how you had said that about explaining it being somewhat of a 2-step process. So there's 1, you're providing the information for us to validate or to verify the information, but then using our PLAD system to validate that. You want to speak to that for me?
Sure. So thinking about it from this perspective, when you complete your Lendistry application that's connected to the SBA, it's going to ask you for your account number and routing number. You will then, after the application process, you will then go in and complete your bank verification through PLAD. And it's just a system that allows you to go in and log in and verify your bank information. It really helps us to cut down on fraud and ensure that the information you've provided in your application is accurate and it only belongs to you, because that information that you provide is what SBA will use to fund once you have been approved for your award.
Awesome. Thanks for that, Clarence.
Sure.
So we'll continue on to the next step, which is step 5. In step 5, you're going to upload all required documents in the supporting documents section. I want to clarify something for folks as well. We at Lendistry, we are a partner with SBA, and we're helping to facilitate the process. We are not collecting any documentation. We are not underwriting. We are not funding. So when you get ready to upload, that is going to be directly to the SBA. So I don't want anyone to find themselves in a delay because you can't find where to upload to Lendistry. You're going to be uploading to SBA. Step 6 in this process, the SBA will review your application and all supporting documents. If there are any missing items or issues with your application, the SBA will reach out to you directly. And again, this is where you're going to want to familiarize your system, your URL, and your email to recognize SBA emails. Step 7 in this process, once you are approved by the SBA, you will receive the grant money via ACH to the account identified in step 4. Now we'll review the required documents. Applicants that were in operation prior to or on January 1st, 2019 must supply at the time of application documentation of gross receipts for 2019 and 2020. Applicants that began operations partially through 2019 and use calculation 2 must supply documentation of gross receipts for 2019 and 2020. Applicants that began operations partially through 2019 and use calculation 3 must supply documentation of gross receipts for 2020. Applicants that began operation on or between January 1 of 2020 and ending on March 10th of 2021. Also, applicants that have not yet opened as of March 11, 2021, but have incurred eligible expenses must supply documentation of gross receipts and eligible expenses for the length of time in operation. For the purpose of this program, gross receipts do not include, I repeat, do not include amounts received from Paycheck Protection Program loans, first or second draw, round 1, round 2, however you identify it, amounts received from Economic Injury Disaster Loan, advances of EIDL, the EIDL advance, and the targeted EIDL advance, state and local grants via CARES Act or otherwise, SBA Section 1112 payments, Randolph-Shepard Act financial relief and restoration payments appropriation, taxes collected for and remitted to a taxing authority if included in gross or total income, such as sales or other taxes collected from customers. This does not include taxes levied on the concern or its employees. Proceeds from transactions between a concern and its domestic or foreign affiliates. And this program does not, gross receipts that do not, or that are not included are also amounts collected for another by a travel agent, real estate agent, advertising agent, conference management service provider, or freight forwarder or custom broker. For all applicants, the following documentation is required. The application, which is SBA Form 3172, must be completed, initialed, and signed. Completion of this form digitally on the SBA platform will satisfy this requirement. All applicants will provide verification of tax information by using a form IRS Form 4506T, completed and signed by the applicant. Completion of this form digitally on the SBA platform will satisfy this requirement as well. Gross receipt documentation. Any of the following documents demonstrating gross receipts and if applicable, eligible expenses. So we have business tax returns. If you are a corporation using an 1120 or an 1120S, IRS Form 1040, Schedule C. So you have your independent contractors, your sole proprietors, self-employed individuals. You also have an IRS Form 1040, Schedule F in the farming industry. For a partnership, partnerships use IRS Form 1065, and this will include the K1 so that we can see the percentage of ownership and then income. Bank statements, externally or internally prepared financial statements, such as an income statement or profit and loss statement, and then point of sale reports, including IRS Form 1090K, 1099K, should I say. All applicants will also, so we have all applicants for applicants that are a brew pub, tasting room, tap room, brewery, winery, distillery, or bakery. In addition to documents in section 1 above, documents evidencing that on-site sales to the public comprise of at least 33% of gross receipts for 2019. This may include tax and trade, the Tax and Trade Bureau forms, which is Form 5130.9 or TTB. For businesses who opened in 2020, the applicant's original business model should have contemplated at least 33% of gross receipts in on-site sales to the public. For applicants that are in addition to the documents in section 1, documents evidencing that on-site sales of food and beverage to the public comprise of at least 33% of gross receipts for 2019. For businesses who opened in 2020, the applicant's original business model should have contemplated at least 33% of gross receipts and on-site sales to the public.
Hey, Chris, before you move on to the next slide, if I may just kind of provide a few tips and tricks. I think that it's very important.
Perfect.
Based on the amount of funding that was allocated towards the RRF program. I know $28.6 billion seems like a lot. However, when you look at the amount of applications that have come through the portal since the program launched on Monday, I truly feel that this is going to be an oversubscribed program. And what I mean by that is that we are taking these applications in kind of a first come, first serve basis after the priority period. With that said, we have to ensure that everything runs very, very smoothly. And everything that you've outlined here with respect to the documentation, to the application, and to the 4506T is really what should be submitted initially. Please, if you're applying for this program, do not piecemeal these documents, because what will happen, the application will be rejected and those documents will be required prior to reapplying. So if you can do it all at once, it's really in your best interest. The other bit of advice that I would have is that when you're completing your application, as well as the information located on the 4506T, make certain that it matches what you have on your tax returns. If there's a discrepancy, it will cause a delay. And again, really very, very important, if you run your business as John J. Smith and you submit your application as Smith's Catering, we're going to look to those IRS transcripts or validation for the matching of those names. So we have to make sure that they're identical. So please just be very, very cognizant of that. It's really in your best interest to put your best foot forward and match the documentation prior to submission. So that's why I think the folks at Lendistry are a wonderful resource in kind of guiding you through that process. And I hope that that is a helpful tidbit.
Thank you for that, Heather. Yeah, that's definitely, again, this first week that we've been processing, definitely have seen, where there could be, where it could have been avoided some of the delays in going back and forth and back and forth. So just taking a few minutes prior to actually getting ready to submit an application to having everything ready that you need. So taking a few minutes to reviewing this guide, reaching out to us, going to the SBA website, contacting BSBA, really just making certain that you're ready to go from A to Z once you start this process, to just give yourself a more favorable chance of being funded. All right, so here's some additional tips for applying. This is definitely a really big one that I've seen in this program and others. Submitting your government issued ID. To complete your application, you must upload your government issued ID in one of the following formats: a GIF, a JPEG, PNG, DocX, PDF. The electronic form must be clear, align straight, and contain no disruptive backgrounds. A piece of advice also is make certain that it is a current and not an expired government issued ID. Use a valid email address. Please make certain you are using a valid email address when applying. You will receive updates and additional instructions at the email address you provide. Some best practices. The following email addresses will not be accepted and recognized in our system. So these are email addresses you want to avoid. Info at is one, and those ending with at contact.com or at noreply.com. So we're going to talk a little bit more about the application process. Your application process will consist of 3 steps: the completion and submission of the application, upload of an image of your government issued photo ID following the application submission, and connecting your bank account. Verification email to be sent within 2 to 3 hours. Application, if you need to look it up, you can find the full list here. And I'm going to show you an example. It's exhaustive, but I'm going to show you something. So this is what it looks like. What I've encouraged folks, and you see here, it's 228 pages long. Just hit the Control F button, and it brings up this ability for you to search. And so that'll be a quick way for you to navigate and find yours quick.
I'm sorry, Chris, but you kind of cut out a little bit. Were you discussing the franchise registry?
I did. I just told folks that if you are, it says if you are a franchisee, please have your SBA franchise code ready.
Perfect.
Yeah, and what I did, Heather, was I went here, I actually clicked on the link to show folks what it looks like, but then I just gave a tip that if you hit Control F, it brings up this search feature here to help people navigate through this a lot quicker.
Excellent. Chris, thanks so much. That's very helpful.
Sure. All right, so we're getting started. So this is what we're looking for. And Clarence, when I go through this, can you share a little bit more from the training that we did with Leanne last Saturday about the waiting room? But the first thing you got here, folks, is you're going to visit, the website that we have listed here to review the program guidelines and access the application. You will be redirected to a waiting room. Once it is your turn in the waiting room, you want to enter the website and complete the form. You want to click sign up to create your account. Please be sure you spell your email correctly and make note of it. If you do not remember your email, this is crucial. We will not be able to retrieve your application, and you may have to submit a new application. Anything else, Clarence, you wanted to add from the training that we did about the waiting room?
No, just to make folks aware that this feature is used really to help us manage the volume. And so it really allows us to hold your place in line for completing the application if there is a large volume that precludes you from being able to get into the application at that time. So it'll actually tell you right there on the screen. It'll also allow you to kind of minimize and come back to it when you're able to go into the application. So it's just a feature that we use to manage the volume as we're going through.
Absolutely. Thanks for that, Clarence. And something that it says here that's really important, it says, if you have created an account with Lendistry in the past, you will need to create a new one for this program. So for folks that may have applied for PPP round or two with Lendistry, if you're here in California and you've participated in the California Relief Grant, that's why you would need to create a new login. So starting a new application, after you have created an account and logged in, you want to select create a new application. You will receive a confirmation, your application to begin. Confirm your application to begin. Eligibility requirements. This is really critical for you to move on in the process. Before you begin your application, you will need to answer questions about your eligibility. To be eligible, you must be able to answer no to all questions. State or local government operated business is one. More than 20 locations. So as of March 13, 2020, owns or operates together with any affiliate business more than 20 locations, regardless of whether those locations do business under the same or multiple names. So basically what they're saying, if you have more than 20 locations, you are not eligible to proceed. Pending application. Has a pending application for or has received a shuttered venue operators grant, you are not eligible to proceed. Barred. Is the applicant or any owner of the applicant presently suspended, debarred, proposed for debarment, declared ineligible, voluntarily excluded from participation in this transaction by any federal department or agency? Again, you will be ineligible. Publicly traded companies. Is a publicly traded company defined as an entity that is majority owned or controlled by an entity that is an issuer, the securities of which are listed on a national securities exchange are ineligible. And if a business is permanently closed, you are also ineligible. Business details of what you'll need to include. So business address, the business tax identification number can be an EIN or social security number or an ITIN for sole proprietors, self-employed, and independent contractors. Business tax identification number and restaurant type. So this is information that on the application, the business details that you need to put in. Something about how to navigate this. So how to select your restaurant type. Find the restaurant type that best describes your business in the box labeled available. Click on your restaurant type so that it is highlighted in that box labeled available, and then click the right arrow to move your restaurant type to the box labeled chosen. So you're basically going from left to right in the menu selection. If you selected the incorrect restaurant type, this is how you correct it. Follow the first three types. To add the correct choice. So we're going back up to the top, the box labeled available, highlighting one that is correct, and using the arrow next to it. Then select the incorrect answer and click the left arrow to move it back to the box labeled available. I know this is really tiny for you to really see it here. Let's see if we can. Just giving you a visual of what you're experiencing here when you put your restaurant type in there.
Hey, Chris, can I also state that, when you're completing this part of the application and you're typing in your social or your ITIN or your EIN, make certain that it's the same one that you used for the PPP program. Because this is closely tied to the PPP and those funds are deducted from this fund, we need to make certain that those match exactly. If they don't, again, it would cause a delay. Please, please be cognizant of that because we want to get these through the system as quickly as possible for you.
Thank you for adding that, Heather.
Certainly.
Additional owners details. So if there are multiple owners, The information that's needed is the applicant operating under a franchise, license, or similar agreement. Does the applicant have affiliates? If yes, how many affiliates does the applicant have? Please list each affiliate's legal business name. Is the applicant currently in bankruptcy? So it's saying, if yes, is the applicant operating under a franchise, license, or similar agreement? Enter your franchise code in the SBA's franchise directory by clicking, and you can click on here when you're in the actual site. Does the applicant have affiliates? If yes, how many affiliates does the applicant have? So you want to list each affiliate's legal business name using commas to separate them out. Is the applicant currently in bankruptcy? Operating under an approved plan for reorganization under either a Chapter 11, 12, or 13 bankruptcy. Applicant not eligible, do not apply. So if you're in bankruptcy, operating under an approved plan for reorganization, do not apply. Filed for either a Chapter 11, 12, or 13 bankruptcy, but no plan for reorganization, do not apply. Filed for a Chapter 7 bankruptcy, is undergoing a liquidating Chapter 11 and are permanently closed, do not apply as well. We talked about the priority in awarding restaurant revitalization funds. In accordance with the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021, SBA will prioritize awarding funds to applicants that are small business concerns, at least 51% owned and controlled by individuals who are women, veterans, and are socially and economically disadvantaged individuals. Applicants in one of these categories that are operating under an approved plan for reorganization under either a Chapter 11, 12, or 13 bankruptcy and do not have a trustee exercising day-to-day control are eligible for funding under this program. For each owner up to 5 with a minimum 20% ownership of the business named in the application, owner type, business type, person, business full name, birthday, title, tax identification number type, let's see here, tax identification number, percentage of ownership, residential business address, veteran status, gender, ethnicity, and race. Details that will be collected. If you have received a PPP loan, please complete this section. You're going to need the PPP first draw, the first draw amount, the first draw loan number, and the same thing if you got a second draw, you'll need the second draw amount, and the loan number as well. Funding calculation, sales start date, the start date in which you first started collecting money for your services or products. You are only required to fill in one set of T fields. So the tables that you're going to use, table 1, 2, or 3, you may fill in more than one set of T fields. We covered that. If approved for funding, how will you use the grant? So the use of proceeds, payroll costs, business rent, business mortgage, business debt service, business utilities, business food and beverage expenses. One thing that I heard that was really neat about this, that it, for rents and mortgages, that if you had a moratorium or they only asked you to pay partial and you have 3 to 6 months past due, you can use these funds to pay for that, but you are not able to prepay in advance for any rents or mortgages. So that was a good note for folks.
Hey, Chris.
Yes, sir.
Can you go back to slide 21? We just want to clarify, because you cut out a little bit when you were.
Oh, sorry about that.
That's okay. Just talking about the eligible. So can you go back through that and explain what you were sharing as it relates to the bankruptcy? And Heather might have a piece that she wants to add here.
Yeah, thanks so much, Clarence and Chris. I just wanted to make sure that we were all on the same page here. And with respect to an approved plan, if there is an approved plan, the applicant would be eligible. If there is not an approved plan, they are ineligible. And if there was a Chapter 7 liquidation, they would be deemed as ineligible. So I just wanted to make that clarification.
Perfect. Thanks for bringing that up, Clarence. We covered the purpose of the grant, the use of proceeds. And then we have the name. So if you have an authorized representative completing the application and applying on behalf of the owner, the individual who is signing the application on behalf of the applicant, or who will receive all communication from SBA, an authorized representative may be the owner, one of the owners listed on page 22. Please use the same information. I know something that we've been addressing is that there are folks that may not necessarily be the owner. You may be a managing partner, and that I know we are definitely doing a background check on that individual as well. So I want to make sure that folks are aware of that. Please provide your bank information to set up an ACH direct deposit in the event you are approved for funding. The bank account should be the primary account of the business. You're going to want to read our terms and conditions and check the box to acknowledge that you have read and agreed to the terms. Something I encourage folks to do, if you have a smartphone, you receive text messages, to opt in to be able to receive SMS text message updates on your application. So you just want to check the box and make sure that you click continue there so that we can do that. Many folks are business owners, owner-operators, and not necessarily sitting in front of their laptops or their computers to see the email. And so to be able to be notified via text message that there's a status update or change would be beneficial to many folks. And this is just talking about upload a copy of your government issued ID. Do not skip this step. Your application will not be considered as complete until you upload your government issued ID. And I think that is it for my presentation. So I will give it back to you, Dr. Danae, Heather, Clarence, if anybody wants to add anything. And then if there's Q&A, happy to be a resource and answer questions.
I do have one question, just wanted to clarify. So with regards to new startups, I know that there was some dates on there that went all the way through March of 2021. So businesses that started prior to March, but within that calculation number 3, if they're within that time frame, as long as they had the eligible expenses, can you talk a little bit about what some of those expenses are if they have not officially opened yet?
Clarence, I mean, it can be all over the place. Clarence, what would you say? And Heather may even be a great resource to answer that one for us, being directly from SBA, who's making the ultimate decision of approving if it's eligible expenses or not.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Chris, from the way that I would provide an example in this instance would be any business licensing fees, the liquor license fee, that could be included, any rent or mortgage that's paid to secure a facility, something along those lines, even if you haven't generated that revenue yet. I think this particular program is really a unique opportunity for our small businesses that are just in that startup stage. And, you know, God bless you, because how many businesses have started over the last 14 months? Yeah. That's awesome. I would love to see business starts in this. The other thing that I would also just like to touch on quickly before I throw it back to Clarence and Chris, this is a great opportunity for you to also look back while looking forward. It's the only SBA program that allows you to do that. So not only can you spend the funds through March 11th of 2023, but you can also look back to February 15th of 2020. If you're late on your rent, late on your mortgage, overdue on your credit cards, you can get caught up with those. You can't prepay them, but you can get caught up and then start to make those monthly payments. So it's really a very beneficial program.
And that's absolutely. And one thing I'll just add two things here. One, as it relates to the eligible expenses, this guide that is actually available for you to review on slide 26, that actually is connected with the application. It'll actually show you those eligible expenses. And so one tip that I would actually suggest is that you pull this information from our website. So as you go into lendistry.com and click on Restaurant Revitalization Fund, you'll be able to upload this, download this application, as well as gain access to links that will take you directly to the SBA. But I really suggest that you pull this guide up and review it before you complete the application, because it'll actually give you the information that you'll need to input. It'll just help you to prepare a little bit more effectively as you're going through the application.
And I just pulled up just to show folks, you know, the URL and how to get here, what's available on the website directly here. But as Clarence is saying, you know, here you're able to go here on this website, should I say here to go here? That doesn't work. To go to our website, you're able to go to the application guide and pull it up and have all this available for folks.
Perfect. So as far as to make it as simple and easy as possible for people and folks out there that want to apply for this program, some of the tips and tricks that Heather shared, and we'll put those up on the screen again. Submit all required documents when applying, or as quickly as possible in one submission, right? That makes it an easier process when going through. Also, make sure that your paperwork matches. If you've applied for the PPP, if you've received the PPP, whatever you put on that application, make sure it all matches tax returns of the 4506T and all of that. Make sure everything matches, because that way it will kind of reduce the amount of back and forth in processing and in questions and with the, you know, back end work that's being done. Also, look through the guide. You can access that guide through Lendistry's website. You can access that guide through the SBA and all of the links that we've provided. And we'll put out a document with all these links on it, because I know there was a lot to kind of remember or try to click through. Any more tips or tricks that we can offer people to make it a easier process to get through?
You're asking me, the number one thing to make it easy is to just really you know, dedicate a time block to familiarize yourself, to know what's required, to know ahead of time what documentation, to ensure that you have everything that you need ahead of time, so that once you do start the process, you can start it in one setting and complete it all at that one time. You have resources like the SBA website. You have Lendistry and our Technical Assistance Center. You have BSBA. Just really leverage the resources that are available and know that you're not in this by yourself. So just take a little time up front, and it'll be a good experience for you as you go.
I do have one question about those, about the newer businesses, like the 2021s that haven't necessarily opened yet, so they don't have any gross receipts, but they have expenses. How would that calculation then work? Is it just based on 100% expenses at that point?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So basically, what they would do is they would gather the expenses first, and then they would back out their 2020 gross receipts and their 2021 gross receipts up to March 11th. But it's that their basis, their initial starting point is going to be the gross receipt, the expenses that they put out.
And those gross receipts for 2020 or prior years would be their personal, right? Since the business hadn't been ongoing yet.
No, so it would be for the business. So it would be the gross receipts from the business for 2020 and 2021. So
okay. But for the ones who are just opening, like say March 1st, 2021, and so they haven't necessarily opened yet to have 2020 revenues, is their calculation solely on the expenses? Because, or is there something else that they should be prepared to like gauge it by?
No, I think I see what you're saying, Dr. Danae, and truly they can document what they have put out of pocket for those expenses, but be very clear, they're going to need that documentation. They can't just say, I used $5,000 for this and $10,000 for this. We want that backup documentation. There has to be a paper trail to equate it to. But
Okay.
yes, even if there's no revenue, we would still consider those expenses.
Okay. Thank you. That's helpful because we've received a couple of questions already like that. So I definitely wanted to clarify that for the community out there. Anyone have anything else to add?
You know, I would just love to say thank you to you and BSBA and to Clarence and Chris at Lendistry. We sincerely at SBA appreciate our partnership, and you know, we can't do what we do without you guys, and you're an extremely important partner to us. And I just want to, from the bottom of my heart, say thank you.
You're welcome, and thank you all for partnering with us. It means the world to us. We're a thriving organization, and we will not be who we are without partners like you all. So we appreciate you all for coming on and presenting and sharing this information with the community. Because like you said, this is one of the great programs that allow you to not only benefit future forward, but also in times past. So it's a great opportunity, folks. I encourage you to apply if you're eligible. Check out those resources and those guides, and they've made it pretty user friendly to get through this process. So does anyone have any closing? Anyone else? Clarence, Chris?
All good. Thank you for allowing us to be here.
Yes, sure. Thank you.
Again, thank you for the partnership. We appreciate it. And my only closing remark would be take advantage of the 21-day priority period. Don't delay. Certainly be thorough, but apply today.
Good advice.
Perfect. If that's all, if there's nothing else, we appreciate you all for coming on. Again, thank you all so much for joining us this morning. We want to give you back your morning for those in California, for Clarence and Chris on the East Coast. We want to give you back the rest of your afternoon and your day. Happy Friday, everyone.
Happy Friday. Take care.
Bye.